If no one's told you yet, let me be the first to tell you. My friends, it is a glorious, glorious day in these our beloved United States of America, and to follow suit the world. You know why? Because the creature known as DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has been killed. Officially, completely, totally dead. Oh, it'll come back in different forms, but it's dead. Trust me on this one, and I'll tell you why. Because this is a fantastic thing that's happened. I'm calling it the death of DEI. We'll get into that in a little bit. Hey, Alec Baldwin, he hates you. There's an actor or any public figure that has stepped in it more than this guy, recovered, and then puts him right back in the gutter. And I don't think he's done stepping on himself, but whatever. We'll talk about what he did. The media is having a meltdown at not being the media anymore. And Elon Musk had a fantastic response to that one. We'll talk about that as well. And good news, everybody. You know, this is that time of the year when a lot of college kids are back home. And then you try to figure out the schedule for the next semester. And you try to get out of college on time. There's good news. You can round out the rest of your general core studies with, you ready for this? Fat studies. Yeah. We'll tell you which university is pushing this one. I think the universities are going to be the last ones to wake up to like the awakening, the great awakening we're going through as a country. We'll get into that. With all that said, thanks for being here for Wicked Radio. I appreciate your time so much. Man, are we close to Thanksgiving? Oh, I can't wait. It's such a weird, wonderful week. Like I said, people are coming home. A lot of people are off from work already. And hasn't Thanksgiving week been one of those holiday weeks where, I don't know, and I was in corporate broadcasting for 30 years, and it was always kind of like, well, if we engineer this, or we take the couple of days, the beginning part of the week off before Thanksgiving, Thursday and Friday, we get a full week of vacation. That's how you engineer that, and good for you. The audio podcast, as usual, would be posted about 9 a.m. Eastern time, and this obviously lives as a replay. Always after this on X and YouTube. I don't do much on YouTube. It just kind of sits there, but if you want to find it, it's on there as well. It'll be expanding in the future. I'll talk about that probably next week, I guess. I don't know. We'll find out. Let's get right to it. Why am I so happy about this? This is the one I've been waiting for. Christmas came early. If you're not too familiar with DEI, because, I don't know, you're just a normal person trying to live a life, hardworking, provide for your family, trying to be happy, who could blame you? But if you've been paying attention to this hideous, snake-headed monster called DEI, it has crept its way into every government agency, every corporation, every facet of everyday American life, and maybe you don't even know it, but you've certainly felt the effects. We all have. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, on its surface, that sounds great. I mean, who in their right mind would be opposed to something called diversity, equity, and inclusion? That's what we should all have in our hearts and our minds, right? Sure. Well, that's what it's named. That's why it's named that way. Like all hideous policies coming from the left, that's what they do. On paper, it looks great. They're great at naming things, by the way. Did you ever notice that? Programs, policies, departments, agencies. The name is great. It's great. It's all inclusive. It's a big umbrella. It's DEI. Let's just all get along. It sounds great. Except that what's been revealed is, all it simply is, and I mean this, and this may get me canceled. You may hate me for saying this. DEI is nothing more than anti-white racism. Clearly proven. Out and about, clearly. That's all it is. And it has done so much damage, not only to corporations and government agencies, to just individuals and every facet, like I said, of society, and how damaging it's been. Because it set mandates, and this has actually even affected how companies were rated, how their bottom line was rated by investment and equity companies. Is what's your DEI rating? How inclusive are you? I mean, this was going on for years. Now, in the government sector, this has been going on, God alive, 3 decades maybe? That's probably a conservative estimate. The corporate world has been around at least 20 years. At least. And it's affected everything you do. How you've got to put a certain mandate on how many people of color, how many people of this particular gender, how their sexual identity, all of this, all just in these little categories in how you identify people. And it was a mandate. And there were whole departments. We found this out last year. Remember during some of the campus riots? the anti-Israel riots, there were separate deans, like Stanford University was an example, a whole separate dean, a DEI dean of the college. So you finally make it all your way up through academia, right? And you're a dean of a university. Well, you've got a co-dean that oversees everything you do to make sure that it's DEI inclusive. Okay, that's hideous. I get it. That's a big headache. Here's the great news. And this is the one, like I said, I've been waiting for. The world's biggest retailer, Walmart, has just announced it's ending its DEI initiatives in its program. This is something you should celebrate. This is what I'm thankful for. I swear to God, because this is going to have a major trickle-down effect to all other corporations. And they're a big leader in this because you know how it always works. Other corporations, other countries will follow Walmart's suit as well. And there have been others. John Deere did it, Toyota did it, other major companies, ending the DEI initiatives not only in hiring, right, but also in advancement and also the products they put on the shelves, how they service you, who gets through to customer service. All of this was affected. Now, don't get me wrong. In some of these companies, some of them, not all, it's still going to exist. Of course it will, especially in government agencies. It'll just have a different name. It'll still be the DEI policies. Those people aren't going away. They've had their whole career in this, milking the system. It's not going to go away for some companies. But a major announcement from a huge corporation like Walmart, getting rid of DEI. Because here's how it happened. You, me, and everybody else in the regular public, through freedom of information, and this is actually a big theme today about us becoming the media, we found out about this, not only the name, but how hideous it is and how it affects our daily lives. That's what put pressure on these companies to get rid of it and stop this crap. And the most hideous part of all of DEI, and it's even hard to advance, like what is wokeism? Do you remember that old expression? It kind of popped up in the 70s and 80s. It's like no one can really define porn. You know what? I know what it is when I see it, but yeah, I can't really define it. It's the same thing with wokeism and wokeness, right? You definitely know what it is. You know it and you know it's wrong. But how do you define it? Just to help you out, because I spent way too much time on this kind of stuff, here's how I've always defined DEI and therefore wokeness. It's advancement on the basis of race and gender instead of merit. And that's what's done a lot of the real damage. Not advancing people, getting rid of the meritocracy. People who have worked their asses off their whole life. But because they're the wrong color, because they don't fit into the DEI categories, any one of them, they don't get advanced. So what do you have naturally? Well, first of all, you shrink the talent field and where you can pick from. Automatically, that's going to lead to incompetence. We've got a crisis of incompetence. We talked about this yesterday, actually. We've got a crisis of incompetence in every sector of the country right now. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder it's because we have advanced people for decades now on the basis of what they look like, what their religion is, what they identify as, instead of what they know. That's why it's so big that Walmart is getting rid of DEI. And I don't think they're going back. Some corporations are going back and they'll just call it something different. The smart ones, and I think Walmart's in this category, they're not going back. And it's a great, great, glorious day. Now, let's go to the opposite of that. Here's an example of one of those companies that amazingly, and I don't know how, is taking the opposite approach. This is actually from the weekend. It popped up on Friday, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday. But it ties in perfectly today because it's like the polar opposite of what Walmart is doing. How about Jaguar? Jaguar, right? The classic car brand. Now, as a kid from the 80s and a rock fan, I always think of Jaguar. The thing that pops into my mind first and foremost every single time, and I wonder if you're the same. In 1987, the classic Whitesnake video for Here I Go Again. You know the song, right? You probably remember the video. David Coverdale, but Tawny Katane, the model, she's rolling around, hot as hell, sexy brand. She's on the cover of an XJS, a brand new Jaguar. That's how I remember. Well, not these days. Jaguar is a little different. The new brand line, the new commercial that came out, doesn't even show a car, but they show a lot of people that you would consider woke and fitting into the DEI categories. It looks like a Skittles commercial, for God's sakes. And then people dug in a little bit more and they said, what happened to Jaguar? Like most companies just realized that you got to get away from this stuff and just go back to your product. Oh, well, here's your answer. Here's the brand strategist for Jaguar at a recent conference. You ready for this? Gee, I wonder why they're falling apart.
And at Jaguar, we're passionate about our people, and we're committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and unified culture
Here it is.
that is representative not only of the people who use our products, but in a society in which we all live. A culture where our employees can bring their authentic selves to work.
Oh.
And we're on a transformative journey of our own, driven by a belief in diversity, inclusion, creativity, policy, and most importantly, action.
Yeah, you're driven by a policy that's going to drive your sales right into the ground, and they've just been mocked about this thing. And I don't even know. I would like to tell you if the new brand, the new line of Jaguars, how they look, if they look good or not, but I don't know. You know why? Because in the commercial that came out, they just have a bunch of people of all the DEI people coming off an elevator. They didn't talk about a car. They didn't mention a car. They didn't show a car. No idea. I have absolutely no idea. So let's see what works. Here's the great example. You've got a blue-collar, working-class, well, that's their customer base, of Walmart, dropping DEI, and a high-end luxury sports car brand in Jaguar that's going full-on DEI. Like they're quadrupling down on it. Let's see what works. Let's take a look in 8-9 months and see what works on this. Let's see what people really wanted. I tell you what, we know what's going to work because we got a hold of the information now. And we know what DEI is about. Unbelievable. Speaking of getting a hold of the information, his favorite story of the year so far, besides the election results and people waking up, is us becoming the media. Elon is very fond of this, saying this all the time. You are the media now. Because the legacy media, I've said now for, even back in radio days, I've told you for a couple of years, it's dead. Legacy media is dead, gone, buried, not coming back kind of dead. Like some things can reform. Not whatever. No. News is gone for them because it's here. It's on X. You get different varying opinions. Most people now, you can look at the numbers if you don't believe me, most people get their news and information from social media now. And most of that, when you break it down further, is on X. Because you've got independent, real, actual journalists now, and you've got opinions of all kind. You think I'm full of shit, and I'm sure plenty of you do. There's somebody else doing a live stream that says the exact opposite. And you can listen to both, and you watch both, and you say, what do I believe? Let me make up my own mind. That's different. That's the way it should have been all along, but it wasn't. Because for 60-plus years, the media, that legacy media, has been lying to us. And a lot of the older people in your life who just can't understand how you could ever not vote for Kamala, they're the people that cannot understand, and I hate to tell you, but they will not ever understand it, that the media has been lying to them. That legacy media has lied to them for their entire lives. If you try to explain it to them at Thanksgiving on Thursday, their minds are going to break in half. Just don't try. You won. You're right. You don't need to argue with them. You're right. Here's another example of why the media is done. You know this is kind of a gross example, but it popped into my head. When an animal is dying, it fights tooth and nail to survive and makes the most horrifying noises, right? Screeching. Think of it like a bird that's dying. It's getting killed by a snake. I don't know. Well, that's what's happened to legacy media. And it's not the biggest legacy media, but it was big with the lefties because this is where they started their propaganda, and then the mainstreams would pick it up. That's the system. That's how they would always do it until now. So Axios was one of those preferred propaganda sites of the Democrats. It would say they'd launch a story on Axios, and then somebody like ABC would grab it, and then they're supposed to make you believe it. That's how the game was rigged. Think of the screeching animal example I just gave you, and you tell me this. Axios' CEO screeching that they lost the media.
Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day or X today saying, we are the media. You are the media.
We are.
My message to Elon Musk is, bullshit. You're not the media. You having...
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter.
That's a screeching animal. That's a screeching, dying person that knows that their media is gone. And by the way, of course Elon got this because he called out Elon personally. And his typical fashion, which is always great, how did he respond? How did he respond to this? That very video you saw right and heard right there. Yeah, whatever. LMAO. You are the media now, and legacy media knows it. Talking to us, he's exactly right. It's dying. And there's your proof right there. They're screeching, holding on to it, trying to find investors. And by the way, so after this happened, after this guy does this press conference, the CEO, people started saying, that Axios, I wonder how they actually are doing it. And they looked up what their click rates are, what their readership is. Oh, my God, it's cratered. It's gone. Just another example. And they made everybody aware of it. Legacy media is done. All right, let's go back into the news for a little quick second. We know who now. That was another great thing that happened after November 5th. So much more clarity than before because you know exactly who our current tyrants are, right? Our 1776 moment meant flushing out all of the tyrants that don't care about you. They care about the agenda. And now it's becoming more and more clear, and I don't know why they're becoming so public about it. I think it's because they need to hold on to their voting base. How about all these mayors? There's been dozens of them here recently, and just this past week, going back about, I don't know, 7-10 days. All of these mayors of mid-sized and even some big cities coming out saying, I'm going to defy the law, and I'm not going to allow President Trump to deport my citizens. Citizens, you say? Well, what about the legal ones? Because all you seem to care about are the illegal ones. Now, I could cherry pick any one of them. This is just the first one that popped up on my timeline. Here's another good example of one of these tyrant mayors and gets us thinking about what to do with them. This is the mayor of Tucson, Arizona. Again, you could pick 20, 30 of them. They're all out there now saying the same thing. Here's what she said. This was just posted last night.
I am deeply troubled by President-elect Trump's plans for mass deportation. I believe they are cruel and immoral. I will work with our police chief to make sure that our focus remains on protecting and serving Tucsonans.
Side note, Tucsonans? Is that what people in Tucson are called? Tucsonans, huh? I learn something new every day on this little live stream of ours. Anyway, so that's the mayor. I can't even remember her name, but that's the mayor of Tucson, Arizona. So just, again, another example because there have been so many, dozens of them coming out. Gavin Newsom has said it, the big city mayors and medium city mayors like her as well. You know, I guess it's a move of desperation because you have to you've run on this, right? You ran on the fact that we're a sanctuary city and we're going to protect everybody and make sure we're safe because that's the only way you can win. And by the way, very important to note, I think we've all made notice of the fact that Kamala won all the states that have no voter ID laws. Boil it down, dig a little bit deeper and drill down into counties and cities like these of the mayors that are saying this thing. These are all the sanctuary cities as well. Now, a sanctuary city means you can't come in and arrest and deport an illegal, which is a hideous idea. It's just awful. These are all, and so they ran on that, and they ran on protecting that status of sanctuary cities, no voter ID laws, and all this other stuff. So I guess out of desperation, they have to say things like that. But she knows she's not going to. She knows it's a losing battle because you just can't. Well, what happens? What has to happen from here on out, though? What has to happen to a lot of these mayors? I was thinking about this last night. I think what you have to do, and maybe it's her, maybe it's somebody bigger, I don't know. You got to cherry pick one of them and make an example out of them. You just do. I mean, President Trump, and you know what the headline's going to be by something like Axios. President Trump this tyrant is arresting American mayors. No, just the ones that are breaking the law. And of course, this has to be legally. You have to go to the Supreme Court. Of course you do. This has to be fought, through the justice system, as it should be, right? You got to go through the course of action in fighting this and making sure everybody understands this is illegal to go against the federal government's decree, right? And you got to take it to the Supreme Court. But before that happens, let's just say, and I'll just take, for an example, I don't know, just because we heard from her, the mayor of Tucson, Arizona, and her Tucsonans. What if you arrested her and the charges wouldn't last and you just kind of made an example of her to get the headlines out there to scare the bejesus out of the other mayors who are doing this kind of stuff? Because somebody, and I don't know who, somebody's going to have to be made an example of for defying the will of the people. I don't know, the legal citizens in her city and cities across this country and in counties across the country. Somebody's got to be made an example of, and it might as well be her. I don't know, but something's got to be done. We'll see. It's a losing battle. They know that as well. Go back to the screeching bird example. When they're screeching the loudest, they know that they're losing. Speaking of screeching, how about this one? I know we're going a little long here, but it's worth talking about. I have never in my life I thought Alec Baldwin was done with the Rust movie shooting. They shot that person on set. Now, whether or not you believe he was guilty, this is a major thing that would end most careers. He's always stepped in it and has always come back to not survive, but step in it again. I mean, and this isn't new. You remember years ago? Was this 15 years ago? 20 years ago? Remember the call? His daughter recorded him yelling at her, saying, "You're a disgusting little pig." That would have ended most careers too. He's done some other stuff. His drunken escapades. You know, there's been allegations of domestic violence. He's like Teflon. Nothing sticks to the guy. But he's also an idiot because he can't stop stepping in it. And I think at this point he thinks he's like bulletproof. I think so anyway. So he goes to the Turin Film Festival. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award. Well, oh my God, this tells you all about these folks. He gets there, and they're giving him the award, and it's a big panel. It's a big, press conference kind of deal. And of course, you're going to use that instead of being grateful, right? Being so happy that you survived yet another scandal in your life, that you're still working and you still have a career. No, he uses the opportunity to take a giant shit on Americans.
But there's a hole, there's a vacuum. There is a gap, if you will, in information for Americans. Americans are very uninformed about reality, what's really going on. With climate change, Ukraine, Israel, you name it, all the biggest topics in the world, Americans have an appetite for a little bit of information.
Do you ever notice, too, when he's in Europe and he's talking to the Europeans, he puts on his erudite, "I'm smarter. I'm sorry I'm American. I'm so sorry. They don't understand." He puts on his "I'm holier than thou. I'm smarter than everybody" voice when he's speaking to the European press. Do you ever notice that? They all do that because they're all phonies. He was this short. He said there's a lack of information among Americans. What he's trying to say is we're stupid. That's what he's trying to say. His audience that's, watched him on SNL and the movies and 30 Rock and all this other crap that he's done throughout his entire career. Can't stop, and he won't stop, and he doesn't care because that's what, that's what they truly do, though. And the reason why he's an actor, actors are pleasers by design. It's in their DNA. And he's pleasing a European press, and they call themselves elite, that think the same thing of Americans. That's what they think. But here's another thing that changed, and we talked about the golden age. I think there's a lot of us that used to care about that kind of stuff. Not anymore. We don't care. Okay, Europe is a mess, and we don't want to be you. Do you understand this? Because all of the important issues, yeah, that's important. Climate change. Oh, Americans don't understand the importance. Oh, yeah, we do. And we understand it. We looked into it. We did our research because we are smart, Alec. We realized the shit that you're sending down the pike about all of this stuff is a bunch of crap. But the people that did put up with it, like the Europeans, they are being overrun by illegal immigration, something we're about to put a stop to. They're being overrun by DEI, which we just murdered in the name of Walmart. Who's smart, Alec? Who's smart and who's not? You absolute dope. Maybe it's smart because we have studies like this. This is my favorite story of the day, by the way. Okay, so this is that time of the year. We talked about this. It's a great time of the year. Thanksgiving's great because, number one, it's a holiday. It's a uniquely awesome American holiday. It's just fantastic. How can you beat Thanksgiving? Food, family, football. You get some days off. The weather's starting to get nice throughout most of the country. It's just fantastic, right? Well, it's also nice because you get family home. I know you may not like all of your family, but it's nice to have the college kids back home. That's always fun, too. Boy, the bars and restaurants do great when the college kids come back home, don't they? Man. Well, maybe they're coming back from the University of Maryland because there's good news, everybody. Now your kids, if you go there, they can study fat studies. That's right. There's a college class called Fat Studies. I had to go to the description. Again, this is University of Maryland. I don't know if it's going anywhere else in the country, but this is tough to read, but I'm going to try my best. Here's the course description. The course examines fatness as an area of human difference, subject to privilege and discrimination that intersects with other systems of oppression based on gender, race, class, sexual orientation, and ability. See? The last dying breath of DEI is going to be in the university system. This course will particularly highlight the relationship between fatness, you guessed it, what's coming next, and blackness. That's right, it's racist. We approach this area of study through an interdisciplinary humanities and social science lens, which emphasizes fatness as a social justice issue. First of all, the first thing that caught my eye was, you can say fatness now? If we're from a university, like you could publish that as the court's name? Because I thought we weren't allowed to say that. The second thing is, well, it's all personal choice. And if you're paying your way through college, you can take whatever you want. Even if you're not, you can take whatever you want. But I can just imagine the situation, right? How does it go? You're home from college right now, or the kid is home from college, and they say to you, and I do the same thing. I have 2 college kids. And you kind of go through it, and you try to you try to get their ear and get their attention. You try to plan it out for the next semester. Okay, good. Listen, before we eat, before you go out with your friends, and we set on this next semester, you got your core classes all set up. You got a good schedule? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. You got those requirements taken care of? Oh, yeah. Okay. Student loans came in? Yep, everything's good. All right, what are you taking? Well, I'm taking this, and fat studies. I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm taking this general election course. It's called Fat Studies. It's like 3 credits. And yeah, I'm starting in January when I go back to school. Right. No, I'm not paying for that. And if as a parent, you should absolutely say, no, we're not going to do that. What you're going to do is go online to drop ad, because we're not paying for Fat Studies. You can pay for that on your own, on top of the schedule, but we're not going to pay for Fat Studies. Sorry. Good Lord. I hate what's become to. I hate that they described it too as interdisciplinary social studies, because I was listen, when I got out of USF in Tampa, I knew they were going to stamp on my diploma, "You'll never get a job. Good luck." Because I took classes like, not fat studies, but like sociology and political science, and I loved my classes. I loved it. I knew it wasn't very employable, but it wasn't this. It wasn't infected with all the DEI crap like it is now. I hate what they've done to sociology. I really do. All right, we went long today. There was a lot to say back in the home studio. Thanks for finding me, as always. It's going to live as a replay, as always, on X. Don't ever forget about that. Also, the audio podcast will be posted very shortly wherever you get your podcasts. Always appreciate your time. Love you. First takeaway today is, don't ever let people like Alec Baldwin tell you you're stupid. Number 1. And this goes along with that. Don't ever take any crap from anybody. Rolling into and getting closer to Thanksgiving. With all that said, we'll talk to you tomorrow.